This is where I thrash.
You will hear me! I will be heard!
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a brand new episode of From North to Wharf, your Bob's Burgers podcast, the unofficial but verified one-stop destination for Bob's Burgers information. As always, I am Mike.
And I am JB. How you doing, Mike?
I am cold, JB. How are you doing?
Freezing. We have like 18 to 20 inches of snow that I just shoveled today. So, miserable.
Yeah, it's like 40 degrees outside. Oh, no, it's about 50 degrees outside, and our heater appears to be down, so I'll have to get that fixed in the morning. So
that's not cool. Not at all.
Oh well.
I think it's 11 here right now.
See, we're both struggling with it right
now. We both have hoodies on. It's cold. So,
but yes, welcome back to the podcast. If this is your first time, hello, thank you for checking us out. If this is a repeat return for you, if this is a return for you, Jesus Christ, welcome back. Thank you for coming back and listening.
We really do appreciate it, and we hope you guys like the content. We're going to try to do some cool things with this, so stay with us if you can.
Yeah, we're learning as we go, but so far this venture has been a lot more I wouldn't say rewarding, but it's a lot more fun than I thought it'd be.
Yeah, no, it's definitely cool just to have conversations about the show. It's just a little more loose, and I think we actually get to kind of dig into like the reasons why we like the show so much more than we used to, and it doesn't seem more as like a chore or anything like that. It seems more of like organic.
Yeah, it's not a episode review chit chat. It's us discussing what we want on our own terms, which is always fun, and which is exactly. And I will say, people have mentioned this a couple times already. If you have seen us with our From North to Wharf live, yes. We have brought over JB's kid to add the ambiance in the background.
Yeah. I was almost going to say, should I just say, if you do hear him, his name's Cohen. He's 3 years old, and he's on the spectrum, so he is autistic, so he vocal stims quite a bit. So sorry about that, guys. Occasionally you will hear him. Sometimes people have said, do you have a parrot, or is there someone like a dog who has like a barking issue? And it's like, no, it's just my kid. But yeah, he's super happy. That's why he's doing it. So yeah, if you hear it, that's what that is. I've also read a comment that I sound like Tina. So,
no, I misread that comment. They were listening. They were telling us about another podcast.
Oh, really? Good.
Yeah.
I'm glad.
So,
I know I'm monotone, but I didn't know I was Dan Mintz monotone.
Yeah. Thanks for letting us know about another podcast. You better be listening to ours as well. Otherwise, don't tell us about other people.
Please.
Yeah. Don't tell us about other people. But I digress. This is another conversation, and today we are tackling what we hope is, it's not going to be the definitive history of Bob's Burgers, because I mean, we'd have to get Lauren in here, Norin, Surin, Jay, and everybody else involved. And, that's just never going to happen. So,
and that would just be almost scratching the surface, Mike. We'd also have to get like Mr. Dotry in here. We'd have to get like Nora in here. We'd have to get
there's
I mean, there's so many artists that he also brings up as well in interviews that are so important, like Damon Wong and like all kinds of people. I mean, we've had him on the show, and like there's so many others as well.
So JB and myself, we have done our research. We put together what we feel is as definitive of a timeline and a history lesson as a fan can put together, scouring the internet for old interviews, the Art of Bob's Burgers, the book, our old interviews. And I feel like we've gotten quite a history lesson in store for you all. I will say I don't know. JB may have different notes than me, but I was not really able to pin down dates all that well.
No, it's extremely loose.
Yeah.
Some dates are there, but it's very minimal. Like they don't talk about when the show started. In particular, like when they started brainstorming or thinking about the show. You kind of get a timeline based on what shows they were working on before Bob's, so it kind of gives it like a ballpark. But through some of the other interviews that we have, someone has kind of listed like there was a gap between pilot being shown and then it getting greenlit to go. So we'll get into all that stuff too. It's very much going to be different.
Yeah. Some of big shout out to, I think it was the Variety article that it was the oral history of Bob's Burgers. Variety, I believe it was.
I think it was Variety, and Hollywood Reporter did one too, I think.
Report. Yeah. We pulled a lot of information from them, so big shout out to them. And yeah, so I guess the very first inklings of Bob's Burgers, and this is according to Susanna Makos, apologies if I'm pronouncing that wrong.
One of the Fox execs.
One of the Fox execs. Apparently, what they were doing is they had another animation show that they were looking for a animation house to work on, and they were getting different submissions from all these different animation houses. And one of the animation houses that submitted like a sizzle reel of sorts actually submitted Lucy, Daughter of the Devil, which of course Lauren Bouchard show.
Yep, which is Lauren Bouchard show. Yeah.
Now, while Susanna wasn't very impressed with the artwork or the show in general, they really loved the writing. So, in her words, okay, I don't know about this animation house, but who wrote that show because it's really funny. They then tracked down Lauren, and then they got a meeting, and Lauren came down to visit them. At the time, Lauren was living in San Francisco. So he got on a plane apparently that same day.
Yeah, that's what I had read too.
Yeah, and flew down and met with the Fox execs. This wasn't Bento yet. I can't remember who did Lucy, Daughter of the Devil.
Which studio? I know it was on Adult Swim, but I can't remember which studio ended up doing it. I don't think it was Lauren's old Soup to Nuts. I don't think it was them.
No. But yeah, at this point, Lauren and Bento Box were two separate entities. Bento Box had already been a thing with Joel and starting all that up, and Lauren kind of came along a little after the fact. But yeah, Lauren says when they tracked him down, they had their meeting. He was already coming off of Adult Swim, so he was used to the kind of rough and tumble animation, the crude animation, and the crude storylines, and the crude humor that came along with all that. So he created. Well, I don't know. Am I jumping too far? Do we know? Did they meet with Lauren, and then he came and did the little test run thing and then met up with them again?
That's where the timeline gets really confusing, just even at the start, because from what like I have all the way back as to like when we were interviewing like Ciara and Norris, who worked on the backgrounds for the show, at the original backgrounds, and all the way back to when him and Jay Howell were like working on getting the sketches and things for the show. And then, I mean, there's a whole pitch too with like what Lauren pitched them. And I believe that took place at that meeting that you're talking about, where he flew down to LA. Is where he pitched the show.
But then this is where I'm confused. If he pitched the show with the cannibals and they didn't like it, why would he then make an animatic of the cannibals?
I think that was the original thing he showed them, and they were like, this isn't gonna, like, they didn't like the art style. I think they didn't like that it was going to be a cannibal based thing either. And I think what Ciaran was kind of alluding to is that they came back and said, hey, we need to change some things. And that's when he got involved more in like doing more backgrounds and refining things and making it look a lot. He's like, the original sketches that he described getting for the show to draw from was black and white with red all over it. And he's like, literally, it was just red marker for blood everywhere. And he's like, okay, I guess we'll use this and I'll make something out of that. And him and Jay came up with these characters that you see in the Art of Bob's Burgers book. And that's kind of where it pivoted to, is that they wanted more of a refined, not Simpsons, but refined, more color palette look. Something that was like very catchy, friendly. They wanted something that viewers would gravitate towards. They wanted something that would be similar to what they already had on the Animation Domination block.
So then if we're making a timeline, we're assuming they saw Lucy, Daughter of the Devil, got a meeting with Lauren, and before all that, Lauren had already made the cannibal short that we've seen.
Because I think he was coming right off of Lucy. And like they were probably like, they only made one season, I think, of Lucy. So he was probably like, we're getting it renewed or not. So he's working on a new show to try to pitch in case it doesn't get picked up, probably, is what I would assume. So that may be where this reel came, that most people see as like the origins of Bob's Burgers with the cannibals. And I think that's where that's going to come from. And that's what I think he showed them.
Now, folks are curious, why did Lauren make it cannibals? He was working on Adult Swim at that point, and he had the mentality that you had to make something shocking or something.
Adult Swim was known as being edgy.
Yeah. To cut through the noise, because at that point Fox had Simpsons and Family Guy, maybe American Dad. I believe they had American Dad at that point.
That sounds right.
Yeah. So Lauren was interested in making like a family business show, but he wasn't. I don't think he was terribly sold on the cannibals, but he made it because that's what he thought he needed to do.
Everything that I've kind of read goes with that, Mike. It seems to like agree that he was trying to be edgy because he thought that's what they would want. And that's what Adult Swim had wanted. So he's like, okay, I'm probably going to have to do the same thing for Fox. Where I think Fox was like, even like as Suzanne kind of alludes, like, how many jokes can you possibly make about cannibals?
Yeah, I think the quote was, do you really want to write 200 cannibal jokes?
Yeah.
No. So Lauren says here, very early on, Fox said, well, do you need the cannibalism? And again, Lauren states that I really put it in there because I thought they would want it. I'm coming off working for Adult Swim, and the darker, more shocking aspects seem like what you needed in order to cut through the noise, which I totally get, but I'm so glad he didn't do.
Yeah, I mean, we would not have the show we have today. And honestly, I don't think it would have lasted long.
Oh, absolutely not.
I don't even know if it would have made a whole season. I think the turnaround, like if you watch it on YouTube and you look at some of the comments, people are not thrilled with it. And they're also kind of like, this is morbid and horrifying. Like, I don't know if the viewers would have stuck around.
I think it would have gotten picked up at Adult Swim, but it would have lasted maybe 2 seasons, 3 seasons. Because they have all those weird shows. But no way it would have ever ended up on a primetime network like Fox.
No, I think it would have been too hard to maintain. And eventually people were like, this is really violent. It would have, I think if they were gearing it towards like Animation Domination, which is more like older adult, like cartoons and like teenage cartoons, like it would have maybe not really worked even there either. So
with marching orders in hand, Lauren takes those ideas and he goes back to San Francisco to put together what would be the pilot of Bob's Burgers, which we've all seen, and we'll get into the finer details of what makes that so special. Lauren goes back to San Francisco to put a credible team of talented artists to help bring his fledgling
vision to life.
Back together. The original team consisted of Jay Howell, who did the original character designs, and I always pronounce his name wrong. Is it Ciaran
Norris? Yeah,
Ciaran Norris, who created the backgrounds.
Yeah, and we cannot forget either Nora. I mean, Nora Smith was a huge part with Lauren, kind of coming up with the idea, fleshing it out, and I mean that's why she's where she is now in the studio. She's written some amazing episodes. She's brought a lot to the table. So, and I'm just saying that as well because Ciaran also made a huge point to be like, she was a big part of it.
Which apparently I didn't notice, but Nora worked on the animation side of things too. Apparently,
no, she's like a jack of all trades.
Yeah.
So like she does kind of like she was writing, she does show running, she did animation stuff. She's also done like some cleanup stuff. Like if you go through the Bob's IMDb page, she's kind of done a little bit of everything over the years.
And it seems like the animation team, the original animation team, there was a team in New York led by Dave Levy, alongside with in-house team consisting of Nora Smith, Rusty. I'm gonna butcher this last
the last name, I know.
Beck Muradov.
That sounds right.
And producer Ralph Guggenheim. I assume no relation to the
museum. We can confirm nor deny that. We don't know.
But apparently there was always a New York team, much like there is today with the voice actors. So it's really cool that to learn that not everything was based in San Francisco at this time.
Yeah, no, I think they had to kind of branch it out a little bit, just because I think the voice actors also, I mean, they're split West Coast, East Coast. So, and from what we've learned too, Lauren picked the cast before he even started drawing the characters. He was kind of like, I know exactly who I want to play each person. So he said that he did cast first, which he's like is not common. Yeah. But his vision was the voices will suit the characters. Yeah. Or the character, will suit the voice.
It also, and we'll get into this a little further, but knowing that they wanted to book John Roberts to play Linda kind of also cemented the family on the East Coast in the New Jersey area.
Yes, and Ciaran confirms that in the interview we had with him a couple years back. He literally states that he originally was told that the show was going to take place in the Mission District in San Francisco. That was where the original setting was supposed to be. But once they got the green light from John Roberts that he was all in and he was going to do Linda, that's when they're like, okay, we're just going to pivot it to New Jersey because that's where all the voices are going to sound more like from that area. So we're going to keep the architecture though, because they loved it so much. So they kept it, and Ciaran's like, I just worked with that. He's like, it's fine. It kind of, he's like, he also brings up that when he initially drew the map of like Ocean Avenue, Lauren gave it to him. There was no wharf. That was added once they moved it to Jersey, and then they came up, and when Kevin Kline kind of was on board to Mr. Fischoeder, they're like, we need the Wonder Wharf got brought in.
So apparently when creating the presentation piece, the pilot, if you will, Lauren obviously heavily influenced by the architecture of San Francisco, where he lived for a long time, but he always knew that the show would take place on the East Coast, somewhere between New Jersey and Long Island, which again makes sense. Luckily it wasn't too far of a stretch given the architecture, because there are Victorian buildings on the East Coast
and Queen Anne's and stuff. There's a lot of them on the East Coast.
The one thing that Lauren did point out that they brought specifically over from San Francisco were the bright colors of the buildings.
Yes.
Not too many people are painting their buildings green or yellow here on the East Coast. But that's not too uncommon in San Francisco. So he wanted to bring that over. And
that's something what Ciaran also brought up, that was huge, because they weren't sure that the colors were going to make it, or if they were going to actually have to like make them duller. And they're like, no, we're keeping it. We're going oranges, we're going greens, we're going like purples, like almost like periwinkle, like we're going all out. So he said that was a lot of fun to do that. And he said, ironically, Lauren's old house that he lived in San Francisco on 16th and Harrison, it was a tinge green, and they painted it recently. The new owners painted it a different color because people were probably taking pictures in front of it, I would assume. So
now I know the original concept or drawings for Bob's was based on an actual restaurant in the Bay Area. The name I do not have in front of me.
I got the name for you.
Yeah, what
it's Just Bob's? For You Cafe. It changed names after the pandemic, though, and then I believe it closed. But
I believe so.
But yeah, and it's located in I have the note where it's located as well. It's in a different part of town. It's not in the Mission District. It's in a different district in San Francisco.
Interesting.
And let me see if I can find it. Where is that located at? It's escaping me right now.
That's fine. But yeah, so at this point, my notes jump to the pilot is done and he's presenting it to Fox.
I'll have a little details I can give you before that.
Oh yeah, please do. Please do.
Okay, so he brings up that well, this is Ciaran from his interview back then, that he met Lauren randomly. That he's like, I probably skateboarded past this guy 1,000 times on my way to work.
So not to cut you off, but Ciaran, for those who don't know, prolific street artist.
Yes.
Yeah.
Does the Blue Bear. He's well known in the Missions area and in San Francisco. So lots of murals, which he does want to do a Bob's Burgers mural at the side of like where him and Lauren and Nora used to meet in the studio. So he does want to put that somewhere around 16th and Harrison is where he talks about putting that someday. He's going to do that. And Jay Howell used to be a barista at the cafe that Lauren used to go to. And that's how he met them. He tried to make it because he wanted the show in San Francisco. He really grabbed San Francisco artists that he knew and that he kind of knew in the area. So he wanted it to be as authentic as possible until it did get moved.
Yeah.
He said, let's see here if there's anything else. He said during the pilot, as I said, there was no Wonder Wharf at the end of the street. That was gone. It wasn't even there yet. I already said that he got the black and white photo or pictures to start things off. This is going to be where these characters and backgrounds are going to be more refined, the ones that are bringing to Fox to show them the pilot that people see online. So that's going to be done. Ciaran did a lot of that, and probably Nora as well, working on that. So that's why it looks a little bit different than Jay's older drawings and then these more refined drawings. Let's see here. I think that was kind of it on that part for the most part. The mural. And then he kind of worked on Ron and Hugo mostly. That was Ciaran's big contribution. Is he really worked on those characters in the backgrounds? Oh, other thing. Lauren Bouchard supposedly wrote the theme for Bob's Burgers on the ukulele based on a song that he heard at a drum and bass night in the nightclub underneath his apartment, like where he was staying. So he heard it and kind of was inspired to write the theme.
I wonder what, because I mean the Bob's theme is so distinct and it's on a ukulele, so I'm wondering what drum and bass song like inspired Bob's theme.
That'll be the deep dive. Try to find that out.
So at this point in our story, the pilot is done. It's completed. Lauren's going back to Fox to show off to him, and he shows it to them. They love it. They did have they had a couple of notes.
They did have a few notes.
Yeah, so actually, one thing to know for those who haven't seen it, originally the show had 2 boys and a girl. Tina originally wasn't part of the show. In fact, to go even further back, there wasn't actually a third kid. There was
only supposed to be 2.
Gene and Luis, according to the art book,
and he already knew the actors. He had already picked Christian Shaw and Eugene Merman to do Gene and Louise. So yeah, Dan was a late ad, and there's a fun story about that I heard on an interview. But you probably saw it too. So if you didn't, I'll add. That's fine.
So the original pilot had it had Daniel, who is essentially Tina as a boy.
Yes.
Gene and Louise, and it's the human flesh version, or the human flesh story that we all know.
The pilot story and the episode are very much the same.
Yeah, they're exactly the same, except Daniel is involved in this, and the artwork's a little more rough, but that gets refined for the very first episode. But one of the notes that the Fox execs had was they didn't feel that Gene and Daniel were distinct enough from each other. And in fact, Lauren agreed, and they were trying to rack their brain, trying to figure out what they wanted to do with it. Do they want to cut the character? Do they want to change it around? And I believe it was Lauren who had the idea of, let's change it to a girl. Let's leave her in a state of eternal puberty. But Dan Mintz will stay as the character.
Yeah, and he said that Fox was totally okay with this. They were like, no, it's fine. If you believe that Dan can do it, then we believe in that. The interesting thing about Dan, though, is that he knew that they were thinking about cutting the character. And he didn't know that they were like, yeah, go ahead and change it to Tina. So he got a phone call from Lauren, and as Lauren kind of said it in the interview, Dan explains to him that he thought he was going to get fired, that Lauren was calling him to let him go. And he's just like, yeah, I know why you're calling. It's fine. He's just like, no. Like, are you cool playing a teenage girl? And Lauren's like, Dan just said, sure, whatever. That sounds great. And just said, agreed to it. And he's like, I don't think Dan actually sat and thought about what actually was about to happen, that he was going to be a pubescent teen girl forever. And that he was just going to have to say all kinds of things he probably wasn't comfortable with or didn't even think he'd have to say on TV.
So H. John was the one who originally brought Dan to
Lauren, yeah.
Yeah, to Lauren, right? I think they
Yeah, he was Dan was writing for the Demetri Martin show.
Yes.
And that's where H. John's like, there's this writer and he's hysterical. Whenever he talks, everyone laughs. You gotta see him. So that's how Dan Mintz got brought into the mix.
Do you think there is a world where Daniel works?
I mean, we just had, if you haven't listened to episode 3, where we go into the Eugene stories and Gene stories on the show, I think it would be very hard to differentiate the two, because we had a hard time like explaining like what makes Gene's stories different from Tina and Louise stories, and they're very distinct and different. I think if you had 2 boys, it'd be very similar stories, because Louise is such a dynamic, different character than Tina. That's how that dynamic works so well. And then Gene's kind of the middle, and it works perfect.
Would it work if Louise and Gene were switched in age? So you had a youngest boy and an oldest boy, and then a middle girl.
Possibly. I think you'd have to change Louise's character quite a bit. Maybe not. She could be the defiant middle child, but I don't know if it works as well, because it's not as cute if she's not the youngest.
And let's be honest. I mean, I think it's better that we're seeing stories from a young girl's perspective as opposed to like, oh, here's more boy stories.
Yeah, and I think it actually does work in their favor to tell those stories, because Nora does a great job telling those stories. Holly Schlesinger has written some good stories too. Like the Molyneux sisters have written some good stuff. I think the sisters dynamic is something that isn't explored as much as it could be. So I like that the show does that kind of stuff and really goes after those kind of different stories that like we just had recently. Like Tina gets a tube top and she's body positive about it. What a good way to put on that for young girls to see that, versus like, oh, if it was just a boy, it'd be like, it just really wouldn't.
It wouldn't hit the same, because let's face it,
no,
get away with murder. And the last thing we want is to see a boy complaining about, oh, that my life is so hard. Like that. That's such an old trope. It is.
I mean, just Daria did it. Like all these shows do it and lean into it hard.
You think some of the ideas for Daniel were kind of just pushed onto Jimmy Jr. because he kind of plays the role of,
possibly, actually, yeah, the awkward teen boy. Yeah, I totally could see that. Very much so. Maybe that's part of it too, is that H. John plays Jimmy Jr. and it's just simple, different kind of like thing where he's like, I can be that awkward voice. Yeah, because Jimmy Jr. has so many things going on that he does kind of become that awkward, like doppelganger Tina.
Yeah, he kind of fills that original role.
He does fill that void, and he's a different family, so it's distinct. He has his own thing. He has his own dad and his own parent issues, so it's totally different. It's not the same family, so maybe that is why it works so well.
Right. But yeah, with these new changes in place, Daniel out, Tina in, Dan's still voicing all the way through. It was time for Lauren to uproot from the Bay Area and move down to LA full time to begin work on Bob's Burgers. At this time, Jay and Surin, they kind of actually like left Bob's to pursue their own thing, because they were they're like, we're gig guys, we got to go to the next thing. Yeah, in their own rights, they were like really up and coming artists and animators. And they were like, I can, and no fault of their own, is like, we could either work on this brand new thing that may not work, or pick up a gig that's going to last for a minute, and then can't be mad at them for that.
No, you can't be mad at them at all for that, because we're going to get into the shaky years at some podcasts too with Bob's. There's a couple seasons that they talk about they weren't even sure if they were going to go on. So that'll maybe be an episode at some point of all the times where Bob's maybe have stopped.
Yeah.
And all the roadblocks that almost got in its way.
So it's at this point that Lauren actually gets with Bento Box Entertainment. I'm not sure how that meeting came about.
I think it's like Fox was starting to, I think, look for different animation houses, and I think Bento Box did a show for them, and I think they were like, the show didn't work out, but they liked Bento Box, so I think it was like, we need a studio that's got nothing on their plate right now, that has the ability to take it on.
So essentially, they're now in the same position that the Fox executives were at the beginning of our story. They now had Bob's Burgers and looking for an animation show to or house to do their show now.
Yes.
Fair. But yeah, at this point, Lauren is hooked up with Bento, and they're starting production on Bob's. And he's putting a team together now because he no longer has Jay and CERN. He then meets, or he doesn't meet him, but he's kind of. I honestly don't know how the Dave and Lauren relationship came about.
No, and I'm sure there was some sort of like, once Lauren was at Fox, I mean, King of the Hill was, I think, still on at the time, or maybe had just ended or was about to. And I'm sure Lauren had some respect probably for that show and what it had done and how long it had been on for. Lauren seems to really like animation in general. So I wonder if it was just more of like a thing like that, and maybe he admired him from afar, and then Fox introduced the two of them. I'm not exactly sure.
Yeah,
I think they wanted someone like Jim to come on board.
Yeah. So yeah, I think as far as like the Dave Creek of it all, perhaps Fox like knew of Dave and kind of introduced him to Lauren. Because all my notes, I don't see where Lauren met Dave before and brought Dave on himself. So
it seemed like Dave was kind of like, came from Cal Arts. I mean, had a good background and was like, I think Lauren said he was just kind of attracted to his drawing style and stuff like that, and the way that he kind of drew these characters and his ideas for these characters and how quickly he could draw them and create them. I think it kind of was like just an easy match. Lauren probably is very descriptive and probably described what he wanted, and Dave was able to draw it and kind of make it exactly the way he wanted it. So they don't really explain how the two of them get introduced either. There's quite a few times like it's just kind of left out in the open that how did they meet? Did Fox instigate it, or was it more of like a mutual, like, oh, I would love to work with him?
Yeah. So of course, with Dave now kind of taking the place of Jay, we needed somebody to do the backgrounds for the show since CERN was doing his own thing at this point. And that is where King of the Hill background specialist Phil Hayes comes into play. They're doing the backgrounds for season 1 of Bob's Burgers.
Yeah, and has been kind of doing it ever since. He does a lot of like the design work for it. I listened to our other buddy who does this podcast too, the Cartoon Chronicles, sorry. When I listened to his interview with Phil to prep for this, and there was so much good information about how Lauren had a very clean idea about what he wanted. It was very clean and clear what he wanted. He wanted it to be like Simpsons-ish, but more King of the Hill for realism, but not too real that people would like check it and like really just dig too much into the backgrounds and miss what's going on in the foreground. So he's like, we picked our color palettes. I kind of just started working from pictures and things that I saw in like around me that I thought would work. And he's like, they just all kind of just came perfectly out. He's like, it just made total sense to us and worked.
So early on in the production of season 1 of Bob's, obviously the entire core cast was in place as far as the voices go. A lot of the ancillary characters were in place, but there was one character that hadn't been casted yet, and that was Mr. Fischoeder.
Yes.
And this is a fun story about how they got Kevin Kline to play Calvin Fischoeder. Is this a story you would like to tell, or?
No, it's okay. We both can jump in and out. It's a good story. This is, I think, one of the biggest moments for Bob's, because they have their cast, but like we're now trying to build like side characters and extend it. And this is the first big, I think, get that they had that was outside of like a comedian or someone they maybe like the main 5 knew. Because I mean, we're about to talk about an Oscar-winning actor.
What's weird is, so we'll get into the story. The story is Kevin Kline's kids were huge fans of Eugene Merman. They went to tons of his shows in Boston, New York, Manhattan, the whole nine yards. And Kevin actually went to a couple of these shows too. So they kind of had Kevin was aware of Eugene. Somehow Kevin's kids knew that Eugene was gonna be on the show that hadn't even aired yet. I'm not sure how that all worked.
Eugene may have said something like, check something out in the fall, like maybe just making a joke about it, but maybe that's just kind of how he knew. But
yeah. So they had that connection. And let's see, Kevin actually attended a couple of shows wherever you do. Luckily, the casting director at Bento Box was friends with Kevin's management, and they were able to get a script to him.
yes,
He read the script, thought it was funny, and he said, "Yeah, I'll do it." Simple as that. And boom, Kevin Kline's in the show.
It's so wild because in the interview that I was listening to as well to prep for this, Lauren was talking about how even if it's the smallest line, Kevin makes the time to go to the studio in New York and do it. He's like, no, I'm more than happy to. He's like, I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't like it. And it's just like, that's where he's like, getting Kevin Kline to do this was just such a huge, like, they're like, we're something now. People are going to know us.
Yeah, like he had always had like confidence in his show, but like even he was shocked that Kevin would say yes.
And I almost wonder too if it opened up a different demographic for the show.
I don't know because
I could see like Kevin just walking around and telling at least like his friends, like, I'm in this new show. And like,
I don't think an actor of Kevin's repertoire,
I don't know. Mr. Fischoeder's a pretty amazing role.
Hey, I'm in this show you've never heard of, and it hasn't even aired yet. I can't imagine he's walking around telling people that.
We'll have to have him on to find out.
Yeah. So we know Bob's as what it is now, the juggernaut that it is. 16 seasons, 300 plus episodes, tons of guest actors, a movie, the whole nine yards. But like seasons 1 through, let's face it, like maybe 4, 5, there was a very big uncertainty of whether or not the show would continue season to season.
I mean, you can kind of see it in season 2. I mean, we got half a season.
Yeah, we got 9. I can't remember the reason why that was. But I mean, it was in one of our previous interviews. But yeah, so they did season 1, and there was still a sense of uncertainty as to whether or not there would be a second season. So typically, by the time you see a season air, they're already well into production on the next season. So that's us to ensure like continuous production. There's no slowing down. Everything can go. The early seasons of Bob's were always played with a will they, won't they sense, which both fueled Lauren and helped him focus on creating the best show. But I can also see how that would create so much stress with everyone on board. Like, can I take another gig? Is this going to continue? I don't know.
I mean, that is why we see a drastic change in crew after season 2. We get a couple of people that, like a couple of animators, key people drop out. And then at other points from all the way up, I think you said to season 4, there are big people that were there at the beginning, and then all of a sudden they just drop off.
Yeah.
They go to other shows, they start other shows, they create juggernaut shows that are still going. So it's just, they move on. But as Mike said, like, do you stay on a show that maybe isn't going to go, or do you jump to something that's kind of more secure?
Yeah. And it's really important to note that during this time, social media isn't what it is, or wasn't what it is now. Like, you don't get the big old like instant feedback from the shows that you see with us or with the folks on Twitter or Facebook. So early in the show's runs, there were always conversations as to whether or not the show was a smart financial choice to keep bringing back. The execs love the show. Lauren loved the show. Cast and crew love the show. But just because you love something doesn't mean it's gonna need to last, because this is a business. Money's involved.
And I mean, there's a it's like a Comic-Con special, and Kristen Shaw is saying like the weirdest thing that I ever thought of, and it was like I think season 3. She's like, I saw someone with a tattoo from the show, and they were getting an autograph, and she was like signing it. She's like, wouldn't it just be weird if you lived the rest of your life with the tattoo of a show that doesn't exist anymore, and you had to explain it? And she's like, so hopefully we stay on. And it's like that's literally they're just talking about how awkward it was.
Yeah. So, like, while everyone loved the show, network included, the numbers were never fantastic for Bob's. They're great now, but for those of you who were around us, me and JB were, but for those of you who were around in like the really early seasons, it was never like a popular show, a hugely popular show.
No, it took quite a few different things for it to take off, and some of them. I don't know if you read this or not, Mike, but there's some parts that they bring up that like the first Comic-Con they went to.
Yes.
They were in the smallest room possible. Mm-hmm. And I think it was the Fox exec. Why am I blanking on her name right now? Yep. She was going down by train and was just like, oh my God, it's going to be, I just hope people show up.
Yeah.
And I mean, we just went this year and there was a line. But she was amazed that there was a line of people waiting the first year at Comic-Con for after season 1, that people were like, okay, we have something going on here that's working. Yeah. And we just went this year and the line was hours long to get in. So
out the door, it's huge. That the room that they're in now is so much bigger than what
it makes sense to have it there, because that line was no way that, as much as I love the old ballroom, I don't think it would have fit it.
Oh God, no! I mean, I would have loved to have seen the old room that they were in, because it was by all accounts the smallest room you could have a panel in. And we've been to Comic-Con. We know how small the rooms can be, so it's really weird to see Bob's, again, knowing what it is now, in such a small room.
Yes.
So while the numbers weren't great, everybody loved the show though. But the execs and stuff, the only way they could get any feedback was from their friends or the kids of their friends. And all of them were saying the show was good. So that was really the only word of mouth they were getting. Eventually social media did catch up with them, and they were starting to see posts on Facebook. I don't know if MySpace was still a thing at that point. Probably not. I know Twitter,
but they said like there was some cosplayers that helped too. They would see them kind of walking around con and be like, "Oh, we're somebody." Like there's a Tina, there's a Linda walking around.
And they started to get fan art at the old Bento Box studio, which
which they hung up. Which now it's like I don't even know if you could get it into them anymore.
Oh God, no. So,
but like, Lauren said they would receive like artwork or like letters and things, and he's like, it was just really nice to get and see how much people liked it.
So at this point, 2011, the show is finding its audience, and the word of mouth is very strong. It just may not be reflecting in the numbers like they had hoped it would.
Well, they got that Emmy win too.
Well, that's up next. That's 2000. Well, they didn't win till 2014. But so if we're doing a timeline, 2011 was their first first Comic-Con. They realized, oh, we got to line out the door. Maybe things are happening. But then
I will say this too. If you go to YouTube, they did a lot of press from 2011 to like year 3. They did a ton of like meet and greets, interviews, like table reads and things like that. I know there was a table read they did too at some comedy convention.
Yes, that was in 2012.
And that also led to them doing Bob's Burgers live. But because H. John was like, that was fun, we should do more of those.
Yeah.
And Lauren was like, if he's telling you should do those things, then you should, because H. John doesn't want to do anything.
Yeah, he doesn't want to do a gosh dang thing. But yeah, their next big moment that helped kind of spread the word and kind of put them on a bigger platform was their Emmy nomination in 2012, which is weird because the show started in 2011, and by year 2, we're already getting an Emmy nomination.
Yep.
And unfortunately, they lost out in 2012, but they did win in 2014, which, I mean, if we're getting recognized in 2012, 2014, we're kicking in the door saying, hey, we're a show to be reckoned with. We're an Emmy winner. Bob's Burgers is the thing here. And with every year, obviously, Comic-Con getting more and more popular, their panel getting more and more packed. They're meeting more and more fans and seeing the actual impact that the show is having. So at this point, we're in season 3, if my timeline is correct, maybe 4
hmm
in 2012. They realize, oh, we're a thing now, and the Fox execs are taking note too.
They have taken note. They've noticed that like Bob's is got its fan base. It's pretty strong. There's a demand for merchandise. There's a demand for like going on tours. So they do Bob's Burgers lives. They do a lot more interviews and like write-ups and magazines because of the Emmy nomination.
Yep.
It really starts to take off, and it's really kind of showing that the show has legs, and it could probably keep up with The Simpsons if it needed to.
Yeah, I don't know if at this point Bob's was tabbed as like the heir apparent to The Simpsons, much like it is now. But I mean, to see its very, very humble beginnings of a cannibalistic 2-minute scene, which, to jump way back in our conversation here, the scene in the short is essentially the same scene that we got in Human Flesh episode 1.
Yep, they just changed a few things.
They just changed a few things. The pilot episode is essentially just episode 1. So it's really cool to see how episode 1, Human Flesh, of the Polished Bob's Burgers didn't really change terribly from its very humble beginnings.
Nope, they just made it a rumor instead. They took out the scene. Like, there's a couple scenes where there's human parts, and they just made Linda and Bob arguing about the anniversary with just grade A USDA beef, and a lot of the same episode is there. That's about it.
The dialogue kind of stayed the same. So it's really cool to see how much it changed and how much it didn't change.
I will add, Ciaran did say that when Lauren came back from that meetup with Fox, and they said like, hey, can you actually make like 200 or 100 like cannibal jokes? Can you make 100 episodes of that? And he was like, well, no. And I think that message probably was like, oh, they want longevity. They see this going. And that's kind of what like Ciaran was saying. He's like, when he came back, he was like, these characters need to look different. Things need to be a little bit different. Like, he just said there was a little bit more of like a directive of like, use these kind of colors, make it more like this. We want it to be this. They always said it wanted to be like Simpsons-esque, but different in its own way. So I think maybe that did play a little bit of a role at some point where he kind of thought, oh, they are thinking this could go on for a while.
And so it also reinforced what Lauren wanted to do to begin with. Like, he always wanted to do a family business ran show. But again, the only reason he did the cannibal thing is because he thought that's what people wanted, because that's all he knew at that point. Coming off Lucy and coming off Adult Swim. So he figured,
it's still weird too that like the tone was like that this is a family that loves each other, and he's like, oh yeah, even if cannibals, they were going to do that. Yeah, they were going to stick up for each other. It's like, oh, this is that never changed. It was always going to be a loving family show.
Yeah, that show sounds so terrible, if I'm being honest.
It sounds really demented and horrifying.
It's definitely something I wouldn't watch. I'm like, this sounds dumb, but I'm so glad they didn't stick with it. And since the Bob's history is so vast, again, 300 episodes, we're up to 16 seasons now, but this is just like dipping our toe in the water of Bob's Burgers and the big old story that there is to tell on the show.
There's so much to get into, guys. Like, the amount of cool things that Bob's was able to do, a cookbook, coloring book, all these things comes right after that. So
and that's a future episode that we're going to tackle all those cool stories, and what is going to be a running history of Bob's Burgers series. But this was just a covering from the cannibals to episode 1 with a little sprinkling of stuff.
Yeah, a little here and there.
Yeah. So we hope you learned something. Maybe you knew all this stuff, and if so, good on you. But if not, we hope you enjoyed the ride.
Yeah, if you found it informative and you have friends who like Bob's and would love to learn more about it, send them our way.
Oh, and if you haven't seen the short or the pilot, head to YouTube. They're both there in their full glory, so you can watch all those.
Pilot is 21 minutes, just like the episode, and you can see the cannibal short. It's not super long. I think it's like that one scene grinding the meat.
Like 2 minutes or so.
2 minutes, 3 minutes tops.
Yeah. So yeah, check those out if you haven't seen those already. Required viewing for any Bob's Burgers fan. Of course, as always, thank you to Christopher Moore, who does the intro and the outro that you hear at the beginning and ending of this episode and all previous episodes and all future episodes. If you haven't already, feel free to subscribe, rate, and review the podcast on whatever platform you are listening to this on. We also have merchandise. You can head to fromnorthtowharf.threadless.com for all your From North to Wharf merchandise, shirts, hoodies, stickers, etc., etc. JB, anything you'd like to plug?
If you haven't, go back and listen to our original episodes. Hopefully you enjoy them and stick around with us. And always, as Mike said, like and subscribe, follow us. Send us a message if you have questions. We'd love to answer. We're very approachable.
Yes. And this has been From North to Wharf, your unofficial but verified one-stop destination for Bob's Burgers information. As always, I am Mike.
And I'm JB.
Teddy, take it away.
I wish my radio worked.
Oh, I wish my radio worked.
Wish my radio worked. I wish my radio worked.
Go on, scat. No, not. I mean.
Scatty, batty.
I meant go, not scat. Go.
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 Where am I supposed to go?
Shoot.
Ah.
Get out. Get out.
So I should go?